Hello, everyone. And you know what is so funny? For the last 2 minutes, I thought I was live. So here we go. So we're getting it done. One, welcome to Judgment Day. Are you excited? I'm freaking out. Okay, so I feel like it's game day right now. Like we're going against a big opponent. We're about to win the championship. And I'm like, all right, let me make sure I got my post moves down. Okay, I know I'm going to rebound. I remember the plays. Like that's how I feel right now because it's so important. It's either going to be Trump or it's going to be Biden, and it's like the battle of the century. So if you haven't voted already, definitely get some tea, get some coffee, get yourself situated, wrap up because I was just out there for a nice little walk run and it's cold. So hopefully now that it's kind of warming up, we'll be able to do that. All right. So now I'm going to get off my soapbox. And this is the reason why you are here. So I was working with a student last week and we were just working it out. Everything was going great. She's like performing very well. I'm like, yes, you're doing it. Good job. And then out of nowhere, she asked the question, why do we suck at algebra? And I'm like, what? She's like, yeah, why do we suck at algebra? So like, it's like, why do we have algebra? And like, why do I suck at it? And I just like, if you weren't here, I don't know what I would have done and all this. And I'm like, you know what? Why don't they take it a step further? And I'm like, I needed a live stream title. So I was like, you know what? That's what I'm going to do. And I did a little bit of research because every parent that I talked to, and also the kids, I always ask them, hey, when did your relationship with math go left? Because I know for a fact when we started out and we started doing math in class, there was a point that it was okay or we were really good with it. But then all of a sudden, something happened. And every single solitary parent said the same thing when I had to deal with algebra. And probably a lot of parents are saying that right now that they have to help their child with the whole concept of algebra, pre-algebra, and they're just like, I don't even know what to do. So you're probably saying, well, you know what? I sucked at algebra. So guess what? My child is destined to suck at algebra as well. And then all of a sudden, there's something called like a math phobia. And there's actually a name for this, right? This is crazy. It's basically the fear of numbers. Like people will literally lose their minds for the fear of numbers. And do you guys know what the name of it is? Well, let me tell you. It's a pneumophobia. So everyone knows it as like, oh, it's a math phobia. Like there's actually a thing where a person actually feels irrational fear of numbers. And I remember I had a classroom and this teacher would say, oh, this child's going to go into your classroom. I'm like, all right, cool. And she's like, no, she has issues. And I'm like, well, what do you mean by that? And she was cocky about it. And I'm like, what? And she's like, no, she literally will break out in hives when she has to do math work. And I'm like, that just sounds weird to me. And then eventually I saw the young lady and I just like, look, I actually sat down and talked with her. I'm like, what is wrong? Like, why are you breaking out in hives in math class? This doesn't make any sense. And she just says, because I get so nervous and then I start sweating and then I just don't like the feeling. And next thing you know, my body is breaking out in hives. So to cut the story short, we didn't have any of that hive breaking out in my classroom. I was like, look, we're going to take things step by step. I'm going to basically go one step to another. And that is it, right? So that's all we're going to do. We're just going to take it one step at a time. And before you know it, she didn't have hives anymore. So then I want to ask that question, like, why? Why do we have so much anxiety when it comes to math? Like, I just didn't understand that. So before I kind of get into it a little bit deeper, if you have any questions, any comments, so I'm going live on YouTube and I'm also going live on Facebook. So if there's any questions, any comments, go ahead and put it in the chat. I'm definitely going to be checking it out throughout this whole stream. So, of course, I have one, Robert from Main Street Math Tutoring. Good morning to you, Robert. He's like almost my one of the best supporters. So, and good morning to everyone else that is currently viewing. We have, oh, Amber Morris, I see you in there, girl. Thank you for the like. I appreciate you. So that's what I'm going to do. Go ahead if you have a question or a comment, or if you just want a little shout out, we'll do the little shouts, the outsies. Okay. So going back to our thing. So, of course, I have to switch everything around. So I did a little bit of research because that's what I do. So I ran across this article in Psychological Science, and it's based on math anxiety. So math anxiety really comes from like two, or not really two, like three different areas. So one of the areas is like environmental. So a lot of us associates with this. Like you just had a bad experience when you were younger. You're like, I hate math. Once they started putting numbers and letters together, oh, hell just broke loose, type of thing. And they just had a bad experience, or you could have had a bad teacher. You could have probably had me. No, just kidding. But you had a bad teacher and usually everyone's like, well, is there such thing as a bad teacher? Yeah. But it's all your perception of what is a bad teacher. So, teachers, we're all trying to put it together. We're all trying to keep it going as best we can. But depending on how that child experiences your classroom, that can obviously put like a little notation on it. If you're a type of person that's like, figure it out. Well, I'm coming to you for help because I don't know how to figure it out. So a lot of those things stick with people. Believe it or not, they stick, and then they grow up and they have kids and they're like, oh, I remember when I was in math class, this teacher did blah, 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 and I hate it. So now I hate math. So sometimes that is environmental, okay? But the other one is key, the personal one. So lack of confidence. And this is what I spend a lot with, especially for my tutoring. Everybody can do math. Like if I can do math, anybody can do math, especially people that know me when I was a young kid. I struggled with math. I sucked at math. Like when I said it was hard for me to just do adding and subtracting, and then all of a sudden you throw some integers in there, you throw some fractions, some word problems. I was like, what is this? This is like foolishness for me. But I did have a couple of teachers that really just said, you know what, Audrey, you can get this done. You can do it. You can achieve the greatness. And just really just building up my confidence. And it's like, all right, let's take it step by step. Because sometimes you're doing something that you don't really understand. And you need somebody to give you that support. So it's also having that good teacher that sees your strengths and your weaknesses and basically designs courses for you. But I know it's really hard because when you got 40 kids in the classroom, that's not even possible. Let's be real. Okay. So that lack of confidence, that also can play on the math phobia, as well as my last one, which is cognitive. Maybe you're just not naturally adapt to it. Okay. So what you're constantly struggling in, you're not really understanding what's happening. And then all of a sudden get thrown into a classroom that's talking about things that is a little bit elaborate or a little more advanced, and you're still struggling with the basic. Obviously, you're going to feel inadequate. So a lot of these things play into having these math phobias. But then you're probably thinking, all right, knowing all that, but Audrey, why do people just generally suck at algebra? I mean, you're talking about math in general, like we want to say algebra. And I'm like, all right, well, let me break it down to you. It always stems with multiplication. And you're probably like saying, what? I'm like, think about it. One day I was just walking, just one morning. I was just trying to think about this question and like why is it separate? And you can do all the research that you want. I even posted to a question to a college and they all said, well, the reason why people suck because they don't practice. But I always say, well, if they don't know that what they're practicing is correct, they need that reassurance. So how can we say practice? They're probably practicing the wrong thing, which all of a sudden you get somebody that tells you, oh, yeah, that's wrong. how does that work with their confidence? Confidence goes south, right? We want to build kids up. We want to get things bright and early. So I'm thinking the problem kind of stems with multiplication. It just hit me like it was like a huge epiphany. Like one minute I'm just walking, next minute it's like, oh, this is why. Because when I look through multiplication when you're in elementary school, this is what happens. So if I say 3 times 5, right? So here's 3 times 5. When you're in elementary school, nursery school, everyone knows that this, whoops, is the multiplication sign, all right? But then algebra comes along. And algebra is saying that, hey, remember those X things? Yeah, we're done with that. There's no more X. X is no longer there, or it is there, but it's a variable now. So now they're saying, okay, multiplication can be represented like this with a dot. Or multiplication can be represented like this with parentheses. So 6, maybe 7 years, I knew multiplication as this. Now all of a sudden, algebra comes into our lives. Then you're telling me that this is multiplication? Really? And you wonder why the kids are lost. Because now you got to change their mindset. And we're not even asking the kids to change their mindset. We're telling them, yeah, remember this? Yeah, that's over. Done. Yeah, now this is multiplication. Memorize this. This is multiplication from now on. No more X's. So it's just like when you're trying to lose weight, right? You got to be in the right mindset. If you're still thinking that, ho-hos is the best way to go every morning, have a Snickers bar and a can of Coke, breakfast of champions. Until you change your mindset, you're not going to lose the weight. You can go running for 5 miles a day. But if you don't change your diet to go with that, it's pointless. Just like for me to say, hey, go ahead and practice. Here's a whole bunch. Here's 100 problems. Go ahead and do all those. You should understand it by then. But if they don't have someone to guide them through it, you're kind of wasting your time. So when we're looking at it, let's give like example, like a word problem, right? And I know right now, translating word problems, that will be like another video all in itself. Trust me, okay? So if I say 3 times a number increased by 5, and this is going to happen. Eventually, your middle school kids, they're going to see this like around second semester, because I know right now, a lot of people are doing fractions, they're doing integers, and they're working on exponents. So I know those are like the big things, and also the scientific notation. So that's the big things that's going on for this quarter so far. But eventually you're going to have to translate words into an algebraic expression. So once you get into it, this is what's going to happen. So if I say 3 times a number increased by 5, a middle school child will show it as such. 3x plus 5. And they're going to look at you like this. Right? Because they're going to be like, this doesn't make any sense. Like, I don't know what's x. And then we as teachers, we see this and we're like, no, that's not it. But we didn't give them the time to translate from that X version of multiplication to these versions of multiplication. So we have to kind of set that up in order for them to understand it. And the weird part is, I still got high schoolers doing this. High school, they're still doing this. So my thing is, I had mostly juniors and seniors throughout my career. So I have seniors still doing this in the beginning of the year. Still, okay? So it always makes me wonder, so what's going on in your 9th and 10th and 11th grade classes? So that's one thing. But the actual translation of 3 times a number increased by 5 is going to be represented like this. Because in between the 3 and the x, I don't have anything. That always symbols multiplication, okay? So going from this to this is what is causing a lot of people extra stress. They don't have the connection or the time to deal with the mindset to go from one thing to another. Okay? Even if I go one further, 6 times the sum of 5 and a number is 24. So everybody's like, oh, okay. So 6 times, okay, so that'll be 6x. All right, a number, okay, the sum of 5. Sum means, I don't know, sum, add, okay. And then I got my 24. So in middle school, I would get either this, 6x plus 5x equals 24. They put the sum, in front of the 5x instead of in between the 5 and the x. So that's one way. Or I would get this, but this is only showing there's 5x. That x is supposed to be a multiplication symbol. So this is what I'm getting from a middle school child, okay? But 5 or the 6 is being multiplied to both the 5 and the number. So what actually should be happening here is this. They should be putting parentheses representing the multiplication. So remember when we went back, we either had a dot or a parenthesis, okay, for multiplication. So just taking a moment just to look at this, or just taking a moment just to read on these, it should go ahead and show you that, wow, your child has to physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, and environmentally have to adjust in order to understand the algebraic concepts. So what can we do? What can we progress on? What can we do to help them make that transition? So one of the things we can do is tell them that X is going to be changing. Start using the dot. Start using the parenthesis. Because the sooner that they see it, by the time they get into Algebra 1 or even pre-algebra, it's not going to be so much of a shock. Okay? So it's not even just multiplication. And you're probably like, yeah, Audrey, that's kind of cool. No, it happens in division as well. Because let's see, I got the quotient of a number and 10 plus 7. So quotient, that's division. That's usually your answer after you do long division. So when you're in middle school, you write it like this. You have your traditional division sign, the line with the 2 dots over top, okay? Dot on the top, dot on the bottom, all right? But when they progress to algebra, they're going to be asked to do this way, okay? Now they're looking at the fractions. These fractions are called ratios, right? So you've heard of ratios, especially when you're dealing with fractions, but you're going to be digging deeper in the whole fractions. That's why you spend so much time in middle school dealing with fractions, because you're going to see this form when you get into more advanced places. So the whole reason, the whole gist that I find, why do we suck at algebra, is because we didn't have time for our mindset to change. That's it. We're asking kids to say, all right, you're no longer doing that, you're doing this, go. Their brains don't work that way. I mean, they might adjust. Some kids can adjust just like that, perfectly fine. But those aren't the ones that we really worry about. We worry about the ones that are like, wait, I'm still stuck on this. I'm still stuck on this part. I need help with this part. So how can we get those kids to go from here, to here? So it's going to take time. So if you're an elementary school teacher, if you are, and once in a while, show them the different forms. What's wrong with that? I don't think there's anything wrong. More things. Let's work on this. And if you're homeschooling, also show them the different forms. Because if they are struggling with all these different forms, it's going to be a struggle once they advance. Because in order for you to get a high school diploma, you have to go through Algebra 2. And my thing is, you can definitely get Algebra 2 completed. You definitely can do all this, but we just have to understand that the mindset has changed. So when I talk about mindset, it's the established set of attitudes held by someone. So it's like, what are you thinking? Is algebra a endangerment? No. Is it going to take some time? Yes. Is it going to take practice? Yes. But you have to understand what is the right thing that you're practicing. Sometimes you just need that reassurance. So, not to be salesy, but it's going to happen. That's why I do tutoring. That's why I left the classroom. I left the classroom because I want to be able to reach as many students as I can possible. So once we kind of let me get rid of this. Once you kind of get an idea of what you need assistance with. So my child needs assistance with breaking down fractions. My child needs assistance with setting up word problems from words to an expression, as you call it, or an equation, whatever you call it. So sometimes we all want to do that teaching. We want to have that education because things are different now. Things are completely different now. So now everything is basically feels like it's on the parents and on the teacher's shoulders. So when it comes down to, I can't deal anymore, please stop stressing. Reach out to me. I will break down the concepts. Once you guys feel comfortable, everything's over and done with, we can kind of separate. I would love to stay around. I want to make the Christmas letter. I just kind of want to be part of the Christmas letter. Can I, But for the most part, I know for sure with the tutoring, it's going to be temporary. Okay. And I want to make sure that your child understands everything. So if you are like a homeschool parent and I just want to teach my child, but I don't understand it, guess what? I can do small groups of parents only. Okay. Do a small group, teach certain concepts, and then you can teach your child. Right? Perfectly fine. You need some kind of clarification? Go ahead, message me. If your child is not doing well because for some reason there's a disconnect, go ahead and message me because I want to make sure I'm able to reach as many students as I can possible. So now I can go to my young lady and say, why do we suck at algebra? Because we didn't prepare your mind for the change. And we as human beings, we hate change, right? So right now, I'm looking over at the comments. And if you have any questions or any kind of comments, again, I'm going through Facebook. I'm also going through YouTube. So it's basically the same things, but I'll switch it around. All right. So any questions, any comments, please put it in the chat because this is the one time that you want questions answered. Why? You're not by yourself. A lot of people are struggling with algebra. That's why we have so many tutors out there that's basically focusing on algebra. And the algebra is that foundation of anything. So if you ever get caught, stuck, annoyed, I'm about to lose my mind. I love my child, but right now our relationship is starting to get strained. I don't want that to happen. I know you want to teach your child, but yet you're getting to certain concepts that you're like, whoa, what is this? Seek the assistance. If it's not me, let it be someone else, okay? But at least try to seek the assistance that you need. So when we got this lovely little algebra stuff, take it step by step, okay? Ease them into that mindset. Show them a couple things. Once in a while, change it from an X to a parenthesis. Once in a while, change from parenthesis to brackets. Once in a while, change from brackets to the dot. But seeing those different representations, when they finally get to algebra, it's not so much of a shock. And then you won't have all those crazy XX and triple X and quadruple X right next to it like this, okay? Because this is confusing to everyone, okay? So again, any questions, any comments, please put it into the chat. Not a problem. And if you need my information, I'm going to put all my information in the very end. You can also look at my website, acgmathtutoring.com. So if you want to see a sample of my work, you want to see an instructional video, you want to look at my term, I was going to say testimonials. I was going to say something completely different. But if you just need to see like, who is this crazy chick? Go ahead, take a look over there and see what's happening. If you want, you can also fill in the contact form, keep doing this, to meet up for a meet and greet. So we're going to do it virtually, but do not hesitate. Don't wait until it gets to the point that there is no return. I don't want this to happen to you. I understand times are tough. I will work in with those things. I do have group rates. So if you know it's you and a few of your friends is confused into this all together, go ahead. Please, let's do a group. They're all together. Let me break down concepts. Sometimes I talk to teachers and see, hey, what's your next step so I can better prepare the students? I have an idea what the next step is, but sometimes everybody goes different ways. Different schools, different districts do different things. So, for the most part, that's basically it. We got to help our kids with their mindset. Introduce them to different forms of mathematics, especially with multiplication. So, as you know, the next live stream is probably going to hit on translating word problems into algebraic expressions. So it's going to be kind of like a lesson. Try to keep it within this 30-minute period, so it's not too bad. So, and if you ever need like further instruction, I also have my YouTube channel, which has tons of instructional videos that you can look for free. So if you have problems adding, subtracting, multiplying, dividing integers, you can go there. If you have problems with multiplying fractions, solving one-step, two-step, multi-step equations, quadratic functions, all those things, a little bit of algebra 1, a little bit of algebra 2, everything is there and it's for free. Okay. So you definitely want to take a look into that. So I want to be your support system. That's basically why I'm here. It's nice for me to do these live streams, which is kind of cool. But for the most part, everything is going to be nice and gravy. So if you have any questions, if you have any comments, please hit me up on my website. And thank you so much for taking the time out on this lovely election day. It is cold outside, so make sure you get your tea, you get your coffee, keep it legal, and go ahead and vote. All right. So have a good one. Take care.